This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We're learning Sefer Ezra. It's been a few weeks since we've been learning Sefer Ezra. So we're going to continue now Parak Beis, toward the end of the Parak, Pasuk Samach Daled. And we're talking about the returnees. And after enumerating the list of the numbers of returnees from Shevet Yehuda, from Shevet Binyamin, and we had a share about all the illegitimate people who returned, the Mamzerim, the Shesukim, the Asufim, and the Gevonim. And so now we're going to give the sum tally. And the pasuk says, Kol HaKohol Ke'echad, the whole congregation together, Arba Riboy, Alpayim, Shalosh Meos Shishim. Arba Riboy is 40,000. Riboy is 10,000. So 4 times 10,000, 40,000. Alpayim, 2,360. 42,360. Today's learning is sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. David Callis, Ila Nishmas, Binyamin Meir Ben, Chaim Zev, Shama should have an aliyah. Okay, so Pasuk Samach Daled gives us the sum tally. And in other words, if you were to add up all the Kohanim, Leviim, and Nesinim, you would come up with this total of 42,360. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Kishahayu kulam biyachad, when they were all together, Kohanim, V'Leviim, V'Nesinim, Haya Bahem Cheshbon Zeh, they would have this total. Now the problem is that if you would add up all the numbers of the people who are listed already, this number is almost 13,000 more than the total of those who were listed before. In other words, if you were to add up each pasuk separately, you would not get 42,360. You'd get about 29,000. So the question is, what happened to the additional 13,000 people? So the Rashi says, Ubnei Yisrael hamenuyim lamala heim shel shevet Yehuda uBinyamin. The numbers who were listed earlier were from Yehuda and Binyamin, and the Kohanim, and of those of questionable ancestry. But you have another 13,000 who are from other Shvatim that were not enumerated. The ones who are missing from this Cheshbon, Shalot Timtsaim Lamala, that you won't find above, Heim Hoyu Mishar HaShvatim, they consisted of other Shvatim. V'chein Mefurash B'Seder Olam, and this is explicit in the Seder Olam, Kol HaKol Ke'achad Arba Riboy, and the Seder Olam asks, if you count them, you only get about Ela Shloshim Elef Yud Gimel Elef Heichan Heim. You only get about 30,000. What happened to the 13? Ela Sha'olu Mishar Shvatim. These 13,000 came up from other Shvatim. Now, besides the 42,360, we're going to see about 7,000 Avadim came back, about 200 musicians. Is that it? Is that the whole Klal Yisrael? What happened to the rest of Klal Yisrael? I mean, you can't say Klal Yisrael only consisted of about 50,000 Jews. What happened to the rest of Klal Yisrael? So, the Ramban, in the beginning of Masechta Megillah, the Ramban says that this number is just the number of the original community who returned. But slowly, the majority of Klal Yisrael ended up returning to Eretz Yisrael.
Even if they didn't live there before?
So, well...
If they weren't the original inhabitants. But
No. Everybody lived there before. In the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, all
people who lived outside Chutz Me'eretz Yisrael.
You had people who left already in the times of Bayis Rishon, even in the times of Shlomo. But 95% of Klal Yisrael in the times of Bayis Rishon lived in Eretz Yisrael. So the Ramban...
You're including the 10 Shvatim also.
Including the 10 Shvatim, yeah. Because Yirmiyah, Sanchev took them away, Yirmiyah brought them back, but the majority of Klal Yisrael did live in Eretz Yisrael, and now the 42,360 were just the original total. Eventually, slowly, the majority of Klal Yisrael returned. The Ran disagrees with that. The Ran says that this is not true, that eventually the majority of Klal Yisrael returned. What's the proof that the majority of Klal Yisrael did not return? There's a pasuk in Megillah Esther. Yeshna yam echad mifuzar mefayrad bein ha'amim bicha el medinas ma'achusecha. Right? Yeshna yam echad, you have a nation. They're scattered, dispersed among all the peoples, everywhere, right? Medinas 127 Medinas. So the Ran understands that this total 42,360, that's it. Nobody else came back. Ruba de Ruba of Klal Yisrael remained in the Galus. The Ramban says no. Most of Klal Yisrael did return. What did Haman mean? There are Jews everywhere? There's some Jews everywhere. Yidala is in New York, Yidala over here. But the majority of Klal Yisrael, according to Ramban, did return. But not so pashat, not so simple.
And when they did the
If I'm not mistaken, Tosfos in Masechta Yevamos, and that Pevav agrees with the Ran. Excuse me, what? The Ran, that the majority of Klal Yisrael did not return. Tosfos in Yevamos and Pevav says we know that when the Jews returned, Ezra fined the Levium. Why did Ezra find the Levium? Because when Ezra came back, he could not find any Levium to play music. Why? Because the majority of the Levium did not return. A very interesting type. Tosfos in Yevamos and Daf Pevav.
What were the Levium doing in the town?
Yeah, why wouldn't they come back?
Counterintuitive.
They did not return.
Why?
Tosfos Pevav and Beis. That's what it is. Tosfos says, Ezra says, a very interesting expression. Ezra says, "Umibnei Levi lo matzasi sham." I could not find in Ezra Parak Ches. Ezra says, I could not find Levium. Tosfos says, but the last parak of Kedushin, it says the Levium came up, and even in the first parak of Ezra, it says the Rashi Havos returned from Yehuda, Binyamin, Levium. So we see Levium came up. So Rashi says no. The only Levium that returned with Ezra were the Levium that had bitten off their thumbs when they left in the beginning of the 70 years. So now when they're returning, right, they can't play. But that means think about it, the only Levium who returned in the beginning of Bayis Sheni were people at least 83 years old.
So you're saying all the young people stayed in?
Yeah. So according to Tosfos, not only did most Levium not return, not one Levi returned. Not one Levi returned.
Why?
Why
wouldn't they come back?
Why? Well, the promise of the second Beis Hamikdash was not that the Mashiach would come. Was only a temporary reprieve from Galus. It was not the end all.
You have a chance to help out with the avoda. I mean,
yeah, they may have known that.
Service, to volunteer. That's what they.
But did the people know that?
Well, we find even when they returned and they saw the Bayis Sheni, the reaction was they were crying. Okay. Okay. So very interesting.
Rabbi, can I ask you, when they do the counting here?
Yeah.
Does anybody talk about whether or not this was Ben Esrim Shol of Amala, Ben Shishim Shona? I mean, when we do census in other parts, we have specific the Nashim, the Taf. I mean, because 42,000, if they were in the 20 to 60 male category, could be expanded to be many more people if the others were excluded.
Okay, I don't have any information on that. Although we're going to give a tally of the horses and the donkeys that return. So you think if you're carrying,
why do we do that?
Good question. We'll have to see. The Medrash asked that question. We'll get to that. Take a look in Pasuk Samachay. Malvad avdehem, besides the servants, ve'am hosehem eila, and the maidservants, shivas alafim, 7,000, shloish me'os, 300, shloishim, b'shiva, 37. So I'd be curious to add this up. We just said 42,360. Now we have another 7,000. What?
337.
337. What?
These are
Avodim Kananim, Goyim. Yeah. Vilahem, Meshayrim, Umeshayros. Male singers, female singers, Masayim. 200 singers.
What does that
mean?
Who?
To who? Who's the Lahem?
What?
To the maidservants and the servant. Who? To whom did these singers belong?
Along with them. I mean, the Jews. The Jews. Now, why were they singing?
They separate out.
Take a look at Rashi. Milvad avdeim va'amosim shelo hayu b'chlal hakol V'lahem Meshayrim u'Meshayros Masayim L'fi shahayu oilam b'simcha miBavel Eretz Yisrael. They would go up. They wanted everybody to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael b'simcha, so they hired musicians. Hayu tzrichim l'Meshayrim u'Meshayros kedei sheyu mitayolos bahem b'roiv simchasam.
I don't say they were singing as they were marching.
As they were marching, they were singing. By the way, you know,
Goyim to do the singing.
no, who says they were Goyim?
But then they would have been included in. Then they would have been included in the number. Why are you know?
You said Avadim.
No, the Ravadim were separate.
And with them, singers.
So you know, of what origin were these singers?
What were the singing?
What his last name was Singers. Well, the Singers. It was a Klezmer band.
Why does it break up the singers in a separate category? I would assume the singers were Jewish, but they're broken up separately, so you know how many singers there were. It's a separate category.
Included in the 42,000.
Why is it so important to give me a number of singers? So what do I need?
Rashi says, "L'fi shahayu oilam b'simcha." Okay.
All right.
Susayim, the horses, Sheva Meos, Shloishim v'Shisha, 736. Perdeyim. Now what about the donkeys, the mules? Yeah, Masayim Arbam v'Chamisha, 245.
They must have all walked. They didn't ride anything.
How about the camels? You're probably wondering about the camels. You came here this morning. You were thinking, how many camels came up? Gemaleim Arba Meos Shloishim v'Chamisha, 435 camels. Chamoirim, what about the donkeys?
Oh, big time.
Sheishes alofim, Shva Meos v'Yesrim, 6,720. Aren't there always a lot of donkeys, right? Fine. So, Ume Roshei Ha'avos. Fine. So you have, horses, camels, donkeys. Ume Roshei Ha'avos.
Why they're listed in that order? Does that matter? I mean, the donkeys are the largest number.
Because you need carriers. You need.
So why do list the camel first?
Camels take people and donkeys take furniture.
Okay, there you go. Ume Roshei Ha'avos, the heads of the families, B'vayam Leveis Hashem, when they came to the house of Hashem, Asher B'Yushalayim, that was in the house of Hashem. Now, what does it mean they came to the house of Hashem? There was no house of Hashem.
Got the Makam Mikvah, yes.
The location.
Right, so Metzudas David said, L'makar in Beis Hashem, because the Beis Hamikdash had not been built yet. There's no building there. Hisnadvu, they donated, Leveis Elokim, to the house of Hashem, Leha'amidai Amachainai, to stand it up on its foundation. Kichaycham Nasnu, they gave according to their ability. La'oitzar HaMalacha, to the treasury of work. They gave according to their ability and according to their capacity to the treasury of Malacha. What does that mean, the treasury of Malacha? The Metzudas David says, to the treasure house that they store the gold and silver to be able to build the Beis Hamikdash, to be able to pay the workers. Zahav, how much gold? Dar Kemoinim. Dar Kemoinim is a type of coin. Sheish Ribois Va'elef.
Drachma.
Right. Sheish Ribois Va'elef. 6 myriads and 1,000. What does that mean? 6 myriads and 1,000.
It's a myriad.
A myriad is 10,000. So 61,000. 61,000.
Coin, 61,000.
Right. V'kesef manim, and how many silver money? Chameshes alafim, 5,000. V'chasnois kaihanim, and tunics for the kaihanim, 100 tunics for the kaihanim. Now, it's interesting. If you look in Sefer Nehemiah, Sefer Nehemiah in Parak Zayin, Pasuk Ayin Aleph, instead of the 61,000 darkamoins, it's listed over there 20,000 darkamoins. So it could be the numbers listed over there are only the donations of the Rashi Avos, and the donations over here are the donations of all of Klal Yisrael. The Malbim says,
where did they get all this money from? I mean, when they were in bubble, they
you have questions, have Jews have money? Jews have money. Chavos Havavos writes that one of the great miracles of history is no matter how downtrodden we are, in whatever country we are, we always have more than the country, the people of the country that we live in. That's that's one of the miracles of history.
That's why they were money lenders.
Okay. Fine. So, Vayeshivu HaKohanim v'Halavim umin ha'am.
Just a point on the count.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we know you can't count people, right? So they must have counted something that counted the people.
They must have.
Because even in Nach, right, when Shaul did it, or when David did it, whatever, there wasn't, you weren't allowed to do that.
So how did they make the count over here?
They could have counted the drachmas. They had more drachmas than they had people.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's a good point. So, Rabbi, so regarding the animals, what Mr. Nathan raised, regarding why do we care how many camels returned? Why do we care how many donkeys returned? So the Medrash says, you see from here, the chavivos that the Yibban Shalom has to those who return to Eretz Yisrael, that it's so beloved in the eyes of Hashem that we count not only the people, but even their belongings, even their animals, even the ferd, even the donkey, that's also enumerated. As opposed to when Elimelech left Eretz Yisrael in Sefer Rus, so there nothing is listed. Just Elimelech. Why? Because there he's abandoning Eretz Yisrael, he's being yored, so then that is something that is not too honorable in the eyes of Hashem, and therefore only the people are counted. Okay. Parak Gimel. Parak Gimel Pasuk Aleph.
Can I just...
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, we have to do the last pasuk. Let's see the last pasuk. Vayeshva kohanim, and they settled. The kohanim settled. V'halavim umin ha'am.
What about the man that said the Levium didn't come back?
Oh, these are the old Levium, the thumbless,
Levium.
the ones whose thumbs should remain nameless, right? The Vayeshva kohanim v'halavim umin ha'am, the hamashayrim, the singers, the Hashayarim, the gatekeepers, the Hanasinim, Ba'areim, V'chol Yisrael Ba'areim, all the Jews return back to their ancestral cities.
I left out the Avdeim and Hosea.
Okay, because there's no Inyan that they don't have ancestral cities. So take a look at the Malbim. The Malbim says like this: Vayeshvu Shevabayam, when they returned, Hisasku Tchila, they engaged at first la'avodas ha'adama, to work the land, lahachin lechem, to prepare bread, v'yizru sadois, and to plant the fields, v'yitu kramim, v'yasu pritvua, leval yisu cherpas rav, so they shouldn't suffer from hunger. V'gam sha'achar shleinosan l'mershus livnois ha'chayma. The Malbim's bothered by the following question: why did they return to their ancestral cities? Why didn't they go to Yerushalayim? First stop, Jerusalem. Here, after 70 years of living in Chutzars, they should have returned immediately to Yerushalayim. The answer is, you need food. You can't live without food. So the first thing they do is they return to their fields. They plant, they prune, they harvest. Why? They need to eat. And also, Yerushalayim at that point, the wall around Yerushalayim was decimated. There were breaches in the wall. It was unprotected. They did not have Rishus yet to return there. And therefore, the first stop were their ancestral cities. But, Parak Gimel, an amazing parak. Vayiga HaChodesh Hashvi. The 7th month approached. Now the Malbim points out that over here it says Vayiga instead of a more a harsher binyan, Vayagia. Vayiga implies like this. Vayiga implies that it didn't just come. But look at the Malbim. Kamoi higia uba bekal. The binyan of the word vayiga is a binyan kal, to say they barely reached it. Even before it approached, they were already preparing for the 7th month. What's the 7th month? Rosh Hashanah. It says the Malbim ki hikdimu eza yamim kaidem lachem. They prepared days before Rosh Hashanah to be able to have a proper Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot in Yerushalayim. So instead of saying vayagia, which would imply a harsher tense. In other words, as soon as it came, now they woke up. No, they barely even reached and they were already preparing for the 7th month. Yeah.
Normally when the Torah talks about the Chodesh, like they didn't say Vayi Bayo, but Chodesh Hashvi, right?
No, so here's the Malbim saying no, it wasn't the Chodesh Hashvi yet. It were days before. They were preparing Vayiga. Vayiga is a binyan kal. Binyan kal.
Hey is a hey idea. It's definitive, right? Ha Chodesh Hashvi.
Okay, fine, but the verb is that.
You said Vayiga Chodesh Hashvi. If we
no.
Right? HaChodesh HaShvi'i means not before, it means the 7th month.
Yeah, but what about the 7th month? Vayiga.
Not before.
Yeah, Vayiga. As it barely approached, Uvnei Yisrael ba'arim. The Bnei Yisrael were in their cities. Vayeyasvu ha'am, the people gathered, ke'ish echad, like one man, El Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem. Now what does it mean, ke'ish echad? Says Rashi, this is not a complement of Achdus.
No.
What is it? What is it?
They all got there at the same time.
That they got there quickly. Right? We know if you're going to Eretz Yisrael yourself, you want to go somewhere. If you're on your own, you get there like that. You have, your family with you till you pack up, until everybody gets together. Forget it,
I go on my trips by myself.
Yeah, when you go on your own, what you could accomplish in an hour. With your family, it takes a week,
100%.
right? Till everybody packs up what they need. They forgot what they want to wear. They didn't realize what the weather would be, right? V'hamevin yavim, right? V'daya l'chakima baramiza, and
I'd like to see you go on a vacation by yourself.
Is there any reason why wherever it says Yerushalayim, they leave out the last yod?
I don't know. We pointed that out in Sefer Daniel, and unfortunately, I still don't know. Maybe one day I'll know. Okay.
It won't be complete till the Bayis Sheni, the Bayis Shlishi.
The two names that the two people called them, right, never had the yid in it. One was Yireh and one was Shalem.
Okay, how about in Tanakh? It's interesting, you have the chirik there, but what's the chirik is not under anything. I don't know.
Well, the Yud represents Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Yerushalayim isn't complete till the Sheen is there.
Maybe.
It won't be there complete
The Shekhinah is there.
until the Bayis
I don't know.
Till the Bayis Shlishi.
Okay.
The Shekhinah never left.
Okay.
The Sefer
I have to go back to the question about the Meshover Rose.
Yes.
What sex were they?
What were the female singers?
Yeah, I mean, we don't listen to them sing.
The women listen to the female singers, and the males listen to the male singers.
It's like Miriam and others.
Right? Okay.
Separate seating.
Fine. Vayakam Yeshua ben Yoitzadak. Yeshua, the son of Yoitzadak, got up. Who is Yeshua ben Yoitzadak? We read about him in the Haftarah of Shabbos Chanukah. Yehoshua. Yeshua is Yehoshua ben Yoitzadak. Right? Vayan, he's a Kohen Gadol. Yehoshua ben Yoitzadak is a Kohen Gadol.
He was a Kohen Mashua or not?
No, because the Shemin HaMishcha was already hidden 86 years before the end of the Bayis Rishon. Vayakam, and he got up. Now, why is he the Kohen Gadol? Why is he the Kohen Gadol? So you say, who else should have been a Kohen Gadol?
Well,
Ezra was a Kohen. Ezra was a Kohen. Now, Yehoitzadak, his father was a Kohen Gadol. So you want to know why he should be the Kohen Gadol? Well, I have a good reason. His father was a Kohen Gadol. But
The Kohen Gadol doesn't necessarily come by lineage, right?
yeah, it does. It does. As long as
individual families of the Kohanim.
yeah, it's an inherited position. As long as the son is Roi Lakach, even if he's not the most Roi. But the Medrash Rabbah says that Hashem arranged that Ezra should conveniently not be there yet. Remember, we learned Ezra's not here. He's not coming up to Eretz Yisrael. As long as Ezra's Rebbe was alive, Talmud Torah is more important than Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael, more important than Binyan Beis Hamikdash. Ezra didn't go up. Had he gone up, people would have disputed Yehoshua's claim to be Kohen Gadol, because Ezra was more worthy. But on the other hand, the principle is it's a family position. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants it to.
If Yeshua ben Yotzadok was Roy,
But-
not as worthy. But
what would everyone have said? People would have talked. People would have said, "Oh, you know how you got the job," like we always see. So therefore, the Rebbeinu Shalom purposely orchestrated that Ezra should not be on the scene. He's still back in Bavel.
Ezra didn't come up with
Ezra's not here yet.
Who organized it all?
So we're
Who
going
did the count? Who was the
Well,
leader?
that's what we read in Parak Aleph, the Rashi Ha'avos.
Yeah, you had a management team.
Right? We had Bnei Parosh, Bnei Shaftaya, Bnei Arach, Bnei Pachas Moyav. And one second, we have the Kohen Gadol here. We have the Kohen Gadol. And who else do we have? Zerubavel ben Shealtiel. We have Zerubavel, right? Kates Bavel, the Zerubavel. That's basically all 99% of people ever know about Zerubavel. Who's Zerubavel? Kates Bavel. He was Kates Bavel's brother. Right? That's what people think. Who's Zerubavel? Kate's brother, Bavel's brother. Who now? That was a joke. So,
We laugh. I smile.
okay, you smiled good. So you might say. So the question is, who is Zerubavel exactly? So the Gemara in Masechta Sanhedrin, Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, has an unbelievable Gemara. The Gemara says, who's Zerubavel ben Shaltiel? Zerubavel ben Shaltiel is a descendant of Yechaniah. He's a descendant of Yechaniah. Who's Yechaniah? God said to Yechaniah,
Right?
listen to what God said about Yechaniah. That what? Asher hagla Yerushalayim magayla Asher hagla sa'im Yechaniah melech Yehuda. So you know what? Now was Yechaniah a good guy? Yechaniah was a bad guy. You know what God said about Yechaniah? He said in Sefer Yirmiyahu, Kisvu es ha'ish hazeh ariri. Write about this man that he'll die without children. Gevar lo Yitzchak biyamav ki lo Yitzchak mizaroi ish Yoshev al kisei David umoishal oy Yehuda. God took an oath. He swore this man is going to die childless. So what happened? What happened was Nebuchadnezzar put him into the pit, put him in jail, and the Sanhedrin didn't know what to do, because if he dies in the pit, that's the end of Malchus Beis David. So you know what the Sanhedrin did? They went to Nebuchadnezzar's wife, and they said, Nebuchadnezzar's wife, is it right that this man should be in the pit, not be able to live with his wife? You could live with your husband. Why should he be stuck in the pit?
She was that nice.
Yeah. So what did they do? They lowered down his wife into the pit.
He didn't want to do it.
And what happened? As he is about to come to her, she says the following: Kishoshana aduma ra'isi. I see something red like a rose. She's Pirsanida.
I gotta go to the pool.
She's Pirsanida. So what did he say? He never kept the Taras HaMishpach in his whole life. Can't touch you. They pull her out of the pit. She goes to the mikveh, and they lower her down 7 days later. And even though God swore that he's not going to have a child, she conceived. The Gemara asks, a woman can conceive standing? She conceived standing. And who was born from that union? Shealtiel. And who is the son of Shealtiel? Zerubavel. Who's Zerubavel? Nehemiah. Nehemiah Zerubavel. What does Zerubavel mean? Nizra beBavel, conceived in Bavel. Nehemiah's father was conceived in Bavel. He was also conceived and born in Bavel. Right? Nizra beBavel. Nizra beBavel.
Why didn't we call him the...
God swore. What happened to the Shvuah? Very good. Good. Well, good.
He went to a base.
He went to the Bezdin, right? So, very close. Says the Gemara, you know, it's called Shaltiel. Shenishal ala lasoi. God asked the court to annul his oath.
Which court?
His court.
The High Court. The very
God's
high
court.
So wait a minute, don't you have to ask him a question like, had you known that if this would happen, you would have never made this vote?
I don't know.
That has to be
And that's the way you do it here, right?
Process.
I hear. I don't know. But that is the story. That is the story. Nizra beBavel. Nehemiah was conceived and born in Bavel. So it's an amazing story. But what do you see from here? You can have a Rasha Marusha, you can have a wicked person, you can have someone who did not Averis their whole life, and with one Ma'aseh Mitzvah, with one carefulness, with one act of Zahiros, their whole life could be turned around. They were designated for eternal destruction, and they father the whole Malchus Beis David. It's an amazing thing. Okay. So what did these people do? So what happened over here? V'Yachav and his brothers, Vayivnu es mizbach Elokei Yisrael. They built the altar of the God of Israel. Laha'alois olav oilos, to bring a carbon oilos on it. What kind of carbon oilos? So the Metzuda, which oilos? What kind of oilos?
That burns all entirely.
Why would they want to bring an oila? That an oila is not necessarily a daily prescribed carbon.
Do you need kapara?
Isn't the Talmud an oil?
Oh, so you want to say the carbon tamid?
Why do they call it carbon tumid? Why do they call it an ola?
Of course, it's daily.
It's a daily oil.
It's a daily.
Yeah,
oil.
the Metzudas David says on Pasuk Gimel, Heim Hatmidim. So they wanted to bring the carbon oila. Now the question is, Vayivnu es mizbach alekei Yisrael halos of oilos kakazav does Moshe ish alekim. Now look at this. Vayachinu hamizbeach, and they prepared the mizbeach al mechainoisai, on its base. Now very interesting. The mizbeach in Bayis Sheni was bigger than the mizbeach in Bayis Rishon. For those who learned Masechta Midos this past summer, the mizbeach during Bayis Rishon was 28 amos by 28 amos. The mizbeach by Bayis Sheni was 32 amos by 32 amos. So they built a bigger mizbeach.
Masechta Midos is what Bayis Rishon was?
It was a Bayis Sheni. Bayis Sheni.
That's what I thought.
Okay? Now, it's very interesting. How do they build a mizbeach? They don't even have a Beis HaMikdash yet. They're going to bring karbanis on a mizbeach. How could you bring karbanis on a mizbeach without a Beis HaMikdash?
At the Makom
What do you see from here? You don't need a Beis HaMikdash to bring karbanis. All you need is a Makam HaMizbeach, which brought up much discussion throughout the ages about bringing karbanis, even though the Beis HaMikdash is not built. Even today, people want to be makriv karbanis, even though the Beis HaMikdash is not built.
And they do it with Makam HaMikdash, right?
But yeah, but maybe we can. Maybe we should go to.
They don't let us daven there. We're going to go to the.
So there may be different problems. There may be technical problems. We don't have the Ephra, the Paraduma. By the way, we know
but
that
if most of the people are Tumah, then you could still be.
Hutra Tumah of the Rabbin.
right, Tumah Hochu B'Tzibur. Now we know that Ezra, the Mishnah in Parsha said that Ezra made the first Paraduma of the second Beis Hamikdash. So, but he's not there yet. So the first Paraduma of the second Beis Hamikdash. So what happened over here? So the pasuk says, "Kakazos Moshe Isha Aleikim," and they brought karbanos. Now the Gemara, an amazing Gemara, the Gemara in Masechta Zvachim says that before they brought karbanos, they had to receive testimony. They had to receive testimony from three great people, from Chagai, from Zechariah, and from Malachi. Take a look at Rashi in your Gemara, in your Navi over here. It says, Pasuk Gimel. Let's read Pasuk Gimel first. Pasuk says, "Vayachinu hamizbeach al mechainosav." They prepared the mizbeach on its foundation. Ki ve'ema aleim, because they were afraid meyamei ha'aratzos, from the people of the land. Vayalu olav oilos Hashem. They brought up carbon oilos, carbon oila la boiker v'la for the morning and the evening. Yeah, that's the Talmud. So what does the pasuk mean? They made the mizbeach because they were afraid. Because they were afraid.
They wanted to get it going.
They should have refrained from making the mizbeach if they were afraid. What does the pasuk mean? They built the mizbeach because they were afraid.
They were afraid that they'd be.
So I just thought of an explanation based on a shla in this week's parsha. Okay, ready for this? It says that Yaakov Avinu switched his hands. Right? Sik elas yadav, ki Menashe habachar. He switched his hands because Menashe was a bachar. He didn't switch his hands because Menashe was a bachar. He switched his hands even though Menashe was a bachar. So the shla says sometimes the word ki means afalpi. So maybe over here also. They built the mizbeach ki even though be'ema aleim, they were afraid of the goyim. Maybe that's the simple meaning of the pasuk. The only thing is nobody learns it that way. Nobody learns the pasuk that way.
It was the first time.
Right? But maybe we can. So
you're afraid of the goyim.
Yeah.
You want to show them that you're taking possession and you're doing what you have to do. Then the goyim will be somewhat afraid of you. Because if they start building, the guy was going to always start up with them. But if they see that,
Oh, very good. So if you display confidence and you look like you're supposed to be here, the guy will say, oh, maybe if you appear meek and you appear like a weakling. So the Jews wanted to give the impression that whatever they were doing with the permission of the king. So what do? They offer the public sacrifices. This way the guy will think, oh, the Jews obviously got some kind of permission to be here. You make believe you belong there, people will think you do belong there. If you walk around, then people are going to say, what are you doing here? That's what Rashi, very good. Rashi says, look in Pasuk Gimel, Vayachinu hamizbeach al mechai noisav, kedei lahakriv olav karbanos, to bring karbanos. Sharei hoyu yureim meyamei ha'aratzos, they were afraid of the people of the land, shelo yikantarum, that they shouldn't start up with them, v'shelo yalshinam, and they shouldn't badmouth them, lamelech, ubanu hamizbeach, la'alois olav oilos, they built the mizbeach to bring a carbon oilos, laman yishmu, so the goyim should hear, v'yavinu ha'amim b'davar, asher aso, the people should find out about what they're doing, al pi ha'melech. Right? V'yavinu ha'amim b'davar asher aso al pi ha'melech. The people will understand, obviously they got permission. V'yalkein yimnu m'lekantum l'binyan habayis, and this way they won't interfere. The Ibn Ezra says, take a look at the Ibn Ezra, that they were not bringing these karbanos so that the goyim think they belong there, but rather they brought karbanos to Hashem, that Hashem should protect them from their enemies, and because they were afraid of their enemies, right? The Ibn Ezra says, "Ba'avor ima aleim," because of their fear, heichinu mizbeach lakel sheyazrim. They prepared a mizbeach to Hashem that Hashem should help them. The Malbim learns a little differently. The Malbim learns, wait a second. They didn't build this mizbeach right away. What did the pasuk say? Vayiga b'chodesh, vayiga ha-chodesh hashvi. The 7th month came. Were they waiting till the 7th month?
What month did they go up?
Well, we don't know what month they came up, but we know they waited till the 7th month. Why were they waiting? Says the Malbim. You know why they waited? They waited until enough Jews came up, because in the meantime they were afraid. They were afraid to build a mizbeach without permission. Yeah. Pasuk Daled. Vayasu es chag ha-Sukkos. They performed the Yom Tov of Sukkos.
What happened to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
We just said.
No, we said they did the carbon talmud.
On Rosh Hashanah.
Well, what karbanos do you want them to bring on?
It says they waited till the Chodesh Shari.
So why do we jump right away to Sukkot? We're talking about Yom Kippur.
Well, of all the Yomim Tovim in the month of Tishrei, the one which is most known for the karbanos is Yom Tov of Sukkot. Right? You have 70 parim, and you have 14.
What do they say?
No, I'll tell you.
Kvasim every day. Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because we just talked about they were afraid of what the people might say. So they talk about the Sukkot because they'll tell the people, "Look, we're bringing karbanos on your behalf."
Okay.
I don't know about that.
What do you mean you don't know about that? It fits right in with what we said. They were afraid.
What? They're going to tell the guy that?
Why do we bring the 70 karbanos?
We know that. We know that. But these
so why would they use that? It's good PR.
But you're right. But the people.
All right. We'll let the audience out there. They'll think of. We'll decide on that comment. Okay. Vayasu es chag ha-Sukkos kakosov, and they made the Yom Tov as written va'olas yoim v'yoim b'mispar, and they brought the carbon of the day by every day according to their count. In other words, every day of Yom Tov Sukkos you have 13 parim, 12, 11, 10. Kemishvat dvar yoim v'yoim, like the appropriate amount that should be brought every day. And afterwards, oilas tamid, they brought the carbon tamid. In other words, when Sukkot was over, they continued to bring the daily oilas tamid, v'lech chodashim, and the karbanos of Rosh Chodesh, u'l'chol moyadei Hashem hamakudashim, and all the Yom Tovim Hashem. So yeah, it is a little strange that we leave out Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But ulachol misnadev nadav Hashem, and anybody who wanted to generously donate a new carbon to Hashem, they had the opportunity to bring these karbanos on the Makom HaMikdash. So Rabbi, remind us next time we want to speak about how before they brought karbanos, they had to receive eidos. They received eidos from Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Chagai testified about the size of the Mizbeach. Zechariah testified to the place of the Mizbeach. And Malachi testified that even though you don't have a Beis HaMikdash, you could still bring karbanos in the Makkah Mizbeach. Rabbi say, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.